fellow acknowledgers. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to another amazing episode of Knowledge and Pettiness. And if you are new, I am Diamond Sade. I'm the host, curator, two-time world petty champ, all those great things. And Knowledge and Pettiness exists to basically be the intersection of informative content and culture. So we do informative, like knowledge seeking, and petty shit, which is me. And every guest that I have on here is a healthy blend of those things. And this lady is definitely an amazing person to have share her knowledge and her pettiness with us. So, honey, would you please tell us who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff?
Well, hello, Diamond. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited. So my name is Shehara Wooten, and I am a certified financial planner. So I help women and STEM professionals really move from being unsure about their finances to confident so that they can create that legacy for generations to come and have that peace of mind. So just a little bit about me, since we're talking about where we came from. I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, and I went to the Ohio State University.
Okay,
Yes. And majored in electrical and computer engineering. And, I was really good in math in school, and engineering just seemed like the kind of career to go that lined up with being good at math. I didn't really like science though, but it just was, a solid career. So I decided to move forward with engineering, and then I graduated. But while I was in school, I was always wondering if this is something I really want to do the rest of my life. I wasn't really sure. I had an internship, and I definitely did not like the work that was being done at the internship, but it was paying me. And as you know, engineering, it pays you decent salaries in internships. And then on top of that, I was getting a scholarship. So it was kind of like, why would I look at anything else? So I didn't take the time to look at much of anything else and just took the job after college. And then while I was in school, while I was working, I just said, there's got to be more. Like, I want to do more of my life. I was looking around and the fellow engineers, and it just wasn't something I wanted to do. For the rest of my life. I'm definitely a proponent of STEM, definitely a proponent of all of that. But for me, I had to look at, what is it that you want to do with the rest of your life, and how are you going to make an impact? And so, all of our journeys, they can go so many different directions, but that was the way my journey went. And I just started a few years out of college and working my job. I was because I was an electrical engineer, I was working in a power type of field. And I know I really enjoyed chip design and all of that. But again, I was taking the path of least resistance, taking the internship money and the scholarship money. And I didn't look at the kind of fields that I really might have enjoyed within engineering. But I took my power, the job within electrical power. And then while I was doing that, I was like, you know what, there's got to be more. I want to do something more. And that's where I started to look into financial services, because I always looked at how we just don't learn anything in college. We don't learn anything in school at all about finances. And I remember being 25, I was living in Philly, and I was doing I was in sales engineering, and I was doing my job, and I went to an Urban League Young Professional meeting, and they were having an economic empowerment event. And I was like, wow, this sounds pretty cool. And they had tables set up with all the different vendors, insurance people, financial advisors. And I went into one of the financial advisors, and I said, I'm going to chat with him. So I talked to him, and my introduction to him was pretty much, hi, I'm Shehara. I'm 25, and I want you to show me how I can retire by 30. So I knew that that was a short period of time, but 30 still felt ancient at that time to me,
Mm-hmm.
although it's not. But he just looked at me like, "Whoa, I don't know if I can help her do that," but I just wanted to see. So we scheduled a meeting. He ended up meeting with me in downtown Philly at the one of the offices that his bank was under, and then I left out with some paperwork. But weeks and weeks passed, never heard from him. You know, just nothing ever happened, and I didn't know enough to know what to ask. So I thought I opened an account. I thought I was getting set up, but nothing ever happened. And he didn't take my money or anything. But it was weird because I had money for him to take. Like nothing really got set up. And that's what actually sparked my journey to learn more and take more control over my finances and just really figure it out. And so I just really got into a lot of my church was offering at the time financial literacy, and I had friends that were kind of on that same level, and we just were talking about money. And then it just piqued my interest so much that I said, what if I change careers? And so I started praying about it. I read the book Purpose Driven Life around that same time. And then What Color is Your Parachute? And then, within maybe a year or two, I changed careers and started on my journey to be in the financial services profession. And it was about 2004 is when I actually changed careers. So I've been helping people and just being in this journey over 16 years, almost 17 years now.
Mm. So I find it interesting. Your, I don't want to say a disdain, but like your disinterest in engineering, because I've found a lot of women in our spaces kind of maybe we were just sold this dream at school, where it was like engineering is that is our thing, that is our identity. So do you see that this interest or that career shift was more about the actual profession itself, or just the type of people that you were dealing with?
I think it was what I was doing and the people. I think that if I had gone maybe to a more techie type company, something a little bit more progressive, I could have had a whole different perspective. I mean, I don't have any regrets, and I do believe I'm on the right path. Yeah. But I think that, and I've told this to other people, I was just like, with the support that I feel that people are getting now, maybe I would have still been in that, and maybe I still would have been, and I would have still been doing both. I'm realizing I have colleagues who are financial planners, and they still work at companies that are engineering companies. So, I think it's the people. I think it's, just, I only knew one thing, and I knew power wasn't it, but I didn't, like I said, I had those golden handcuffs, so to speak, and it was just really easy to stay where I was. And, but I think that the support, wasn't really there. It was tough. It was really tough being in Philly and, working with, being the only Black woman in the office. We had a small office. We were in sales, and my mind didn't work the way their minds worked in terms of, I was dealing with construction. And so, I just did not, I don't know. I felt like this is not a fit for me. This is not really for me. I wasn't, my white female colleague, she was really rough and tough, and I just wasn't that person. I wasn't rough and tough. I was in Philly, and Philly was, it was something, but it was, I enjoy somehow, the interest of what I had in terms of learning about finances, getting a handle on that. It just trumped everything else. Even when I was in college, I knew I wasn't going to stay in engineering. Yeah, I knew I wasn't. I had heard in college that there was a master's in financial engineering. And I heard that in college before I graduated, but I did not go that path or even really research that. I was like, I really want to help individuals. I really want to work with individuals. And I think financial engineering at that time was just at the very beginning of fintech, like what we see as fintech now. And that was really interesting and intriguing to me. But, the other part just really overshadowed that for me.
So that's interesting, because I feel like we all have this sense of like, I want to help, I want to do something to change either my family, my community, or just the greater Black majority. So do you feel like, well, actually, let me ask this question. Were you the only in your family when it came to just like how you interacted with money? Was it because you, or however your life was before you were in financial planning, were you the only, engineer, the only college graduate? Like, what was that backstory?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So my parents, just like a lot of us, Black in the Black community, my parents came from very humble beginnings. They grew up poor. My mom, she graduated from high school and she wanted to go to college, but my granddad, he could not afford it. So she ended up working at one of the Bell companies, like Ohio Bell, and she did that for 42 years. So got a great, had a great stint with that, and, sat at one desk and, was called 50 million different companies during that time, because, there was so much potential layoffs and all that. And then my dad, he ended up going to the military. He ended up getting a master's degree, going through school and all of that. So, I have one parent that did go to school and one that wasn't able to. Women, it was very tough, for them to get the justification to go to school. So to go to college. So when I was growing up, it was like, you're going to college. Like, it wasn't even a question. So I'm the oldest, and I ended up, graduating high school and, going to college, getting my engineering degree. And I grew up with, just having a love for math. Like, it's really interesting that you asked about my backstory, because when I got into third grade, I actually couldn't read, and I couldn't write, or wasn't good at math or anything. I really thought I was stupid. And I ended up just really, just like, what's going on? And my mom was very proactive in trying to figure all that out. And I really appreciate that. And then so I was in a public school up until that point, and those teachers, I had all white teachers, women teachers, and they, would just kind of pass me through. And then, my mom was like, wait a second, she doesn't know things or whatever. So she put me in a school. It was actually a private school. It was a Christian school. And it was a mostly Black. I don't think we had any white students. It was a Black Christian school. And that's where my life changed. I was in third grade, and I was acting out because I had come from a public school, and not to say that that's what everybody does, but I was acting out, and my teacher was like, "This is crazy," but my teacher, they could paddle and they could take a ruler and smack you.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not used to this. And so I told my mom, I said, Miss Gray is, hitting me with the ruler, and she's calling me out and things like this. And I'll tell you that this is how much I wasn't really into the protocol. On the first day, we had to put our chair on our desk and we had to do a benediction. I didn't know what that was. And and I was just like, okay, and then the teacher called me out and said, you did not close your eyes. Miss Gray was from the Bahamas, so she had an accent.
Oh,
and she was
Lord.
like, you didn't close your eyes. And I'm like, close your eyes? I'm supposed to close my eyes. Like, I didn't even know. I didn't know, like, really all that. But that was because we were praying, and I didn't know all that. So she called me out, and then it just kept happening. So I told my mom, I was like, I don't know. She keeps calling me out. I don't appreciate it. Yeah, some of it was, yeah, I needed to be called out, but
Yeah.
I just felt like I was just being totally put on Front Street. And so my mom talked to her, and they talked it through. And Miss Gray and my mom put together a program and a plan for me, because what they realized is I didn't know how to read. I didn't know how to write, didn't know how to tell time. And she sat with me after school and would read with me, taught me how to read. So I was, at that time, they had reading groups, and and so she actually sat with me, chatted with me, taught me how to read. But the whole time, you know what she was saying to me while I was learning how to read, especially the first day? She was saying, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, telling your mom or me.
Lord.
And so I just was like, let me just learn how to read, because I don't know. And I didn't talk back to her or anything. I just looked up at her in my little chair. She was in her chair, and she was showing me how to read. And then from that point forward, confidence just built up. I moved from like the lowest reading group to the highest, because that's what they had. Wow. They had reading groups. And then math was just like, all of a sudden it just clicked for me. And I was like the best in the class at math. I would try to run over everybody, you know, when we did round world and we had to do the times tables. And I was like, 3 times 5, 15, like jumping out there, like, and I didn't care if you were a boy or a girl, whatever. And it's interesting because I never had that experience that I hear about young women having, where all of a sudden they don't like math. I liked math the whole way through, all the way through college. And so I don't know what that is, where all of a sudden young ladies all of a sudden feel like they shouldn't be good at math. I mean, I started off not knowing anything about math, but in 3rd grade, it was just like my life just changed. And from that point forward, I just gained that confidence and all of that. But it was just a really interesting transition to kind of go back from there. And then I have 2 sisters, and they went to college, and we all went. It doesn't mean that my aunts and uncles and their kids, went, but for whatever reason, my dad and my mom, with what they instilled in us, it was just kind of like, that's what's going to happen.
I think that's remarkable. One, that you had a parent that active to see like something's not right. And that's, no shade at any parent or whatever, but it takes a certain level of just attentiveness to even recognize those things, because I can imagine you had great grades if you're getting passed through these classes, but your mom's still saying something's just not right. That's incredible.
Yeah, and it makes me look back, like, because I was in an inner city school in Columbus, Ohio, and I know that people can get passed through. And I wasn't really, I don't know that I was really getting the best grades. I do remember C's and things like that. But that'll pass you. But I didn't know anything. Like, how are you passing me through? But I was good. I was quiet. And I was well behaved, at least at that point. But when I got to 3rd grade and got to my Christian school, I decided to act out. So, and that's when Miss Gray was like, we're not having this. Yeah. And she set me straight. So some of it was just being able to have that discipline. And then obviously having parents that were actively involved. Both of my parents, I knew that, and I, my parents are still together. But, I knew that I couldn't do certain things, but I also knew my parents would go to bat for me.
That's what it sounds like.
Yes. I knew they would go to bat for me. I had incidents. I went to a Catholic school one year, and the 8th grade, the teacher told everybody in the class, because by this point I was with my Black, I had gone through my Blackness, learned about my Black history. That was one thing. My dad sat us down And this was kind of tough, but around, 9 or 10, we were sitting down watching Eyes on the Prize, and I end up hearing
Ooh.
Emmett. Yeah, Emmett Till is the first thing of that series, the first story. Yeah. So I'm just like, what? And then, so by having that, he sat us down, taught us about our Black history, and then it just made me, and some of the motivation might not be like the best way to be motivated, but I was just like, oh, they think we're stupid.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to show them. So every time that I'm out there, talking, I'm going to, make sure they know that I'm very smart. And all of that. So, but that was all part of it. And then, so by the time I got to high school, I was, in 8th grade, I was in a mixed group. So we had Black, we had white, we had Laotian, but Sister Mary was white, and she was teaching. And I was like, now I know my Black history. We're about to talk about history. And so she was just like, slaves were happy.
The hell?
Yeah. And I was like, what? And I was a rule follower. So, in that school, they said, do not argue with the teacher, tell your parents, and then they'll come. So I told my mom and dad, and they approached her. They said, my daughter said that you said that slaves were happy. And she was like, oh, no, I would not have said, that's not what I meant. And anyway, so going forward, she did tell the class, that was misunderstood. And I would just look at her like with this almost scowl, but what a 13-year-old could have right on her face. Like, don't say anything crazy.
Right.
I'm going to tell my parents on you. So, but then, and then I went to an all white school in high school. So we moved to the suburbs, and that was when and it was culture shock for me, straight culture shock. I actually just focused on my academics. I tried to be number one and tried to do, but honestly, it's funny that anybody even knows who I am from high school, because I did not make a lot of friends. It was culture shock for me.
Yeah.
I just really went into my own little hole and just said, well, whatever is going to happen is I'm going to be getting A's and I, got some B's, of course, but, I'm going to be top as I can be. And so that was very interesting, but it did help me to experience that. It did help me because, by the time I got to college and, got into the corporate world, I did feel more comfortable. It wasn't as much of a culture shock. So I experienced my culture shock, in high school from that angle.
It's good. I mean, it's not good that you had a culture shock, but I think it's good for us to have that exposure, especially when you look at where we ended up in engineering, because it is few and far in between, especially having Black women in that field.
Oh gosh, so true.
So it's like, because I had a similar culture shock in about the 6th grade. I went from an all Black school to an all white school, and that shit, girl, I was like, y'all are crazy. Like, that's all I can think. Like, y'all are crazy. But it was good because I kind of got to see, and I don't want to sound like a safari, but see white people in their habitat. Like I got to see that, even the kids who kind of talk to me crazy, because it's different when, it's Black kids and we joning joning. I don't know what y'all call it in y'all city, but St. Louis, we call it joning on each other.
Cracking.
Cracking. That's what I'm used to. I never experienced, like, in white school, it wasn't that. It was like pure isolation. Yeah. And like, I came in ready to be like, hey, yo mama, hey, you this, you that. I came in for that, and they were just like, who are these Black kids? And I was like, bastards. Like,
right. Yeah, by the time I got to high school, I was super mellowed out. When I tell the story, I'm like, my friends are like, that was your BC, before Christ, and then after Christ.
Right.
It's like, third grade changed my life, right? Like I came in there trying to start fights. I came in there trying to be something. And I'm like, what in the world? Who is this little tiny little girl trying to, trying to run things?
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm like nowhere like that person anymore. I mean, I think in the business, from a business sense and trying to ambition, I think I do draw some of that, but I'm very different now.
For sure.
Yeah.
So when it comes to finances, did your parents kind of plant that seed of financial literacy, or was it then your parents still figuring it out? Because like what I kind of believe, and I've kind of cleaved to this like mentality, is like I feel like we're the first true thriving Black generation. I feel like every generation before us was just really surviving and just trying to provide the best. So did they teach you about financial literacy, or did they have any tools in their financial toolbox that they gave you to help you get in this space?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because it wasn't like we're going to sit Shehara down and her two sisters, like we're going to sit them down and just start teaching them. But I do remember like my first memory of money would be like when I was in 8 years old. 8 years old was a pivotal year. And I remember because I was getting good grades, my dad would give us money. And I think I might have, kind of proposed because I had heard that, kids were getting allowances.
Yeah.
So I think I might have, dropped a bug in his ear like, hey, what about this allowance thing that kids are getting? So he did start, giving us money for grades and things like that. And I know some parents have their own thoughts on that, but it was good for me, to be able to, have some money. And one of my first memories is, getting $20 around Christmas time and, having my two sisters and my mom and dad, and I'm supposed to buy Christmas gifts. And I know math now. So I know that's $5 divided by, 4 people, or $20 divided by 4, that's 5 people. So I'm using my math skills and things like that, because now I know.
So, are you interested in changing your career, changing the trajectory of your life? Then you need to check out my website at diamondwilliams.me so I can help you with career coaching, mindset change, and of course, resume revisions. Let me help you flourish. Let me help you get what you need. Let me help you get what you want. I got you. Check me out.
Knowledge and Pettiness has the tea on tea. So what is Big Black Tea? Launched in October 2020 during COVID-19, Big Black Tea, a Guy brand, is one of the hottest tea brands in the world, brought to you by Guy, one of the hottest lifestyle brands in the world right now. So why Big Black Tea? Big Black Tea's mission is to ensure that every member of the community and the world has a warm cup of tea to help them heal and recover and find a moment of euphoria. Influencers and leaders such as the CEO of LinkedIn, Melinda Hart, diversity and inclusion activists, and venture capitalists are some of the few leaders who are sipping the tea. So where can you purchase Big Black Tea? At bigblacktea.com. Make sure you use that referral code knowledge.
Yeah, now I know math. And so I'm going to Woolworth and I'm trying to figure out how do I get the best, how do I spend this $20 and still have some money left over for me? So I somehow was able to get my two sisters their Christmas gift, my dad and mom their Christmas gift. And I came home and I told my dad, I said, hey, Daddy, I was able to buy everybody a gift and I still have some money left over for me. And he was like, good job. So that was one of my first money memories. And it was just kind of like they still liked their gift. And somehow I was still able to, have maybe $1 or something to buy some now and laters or whatever. And so I was those are some of my first memories. And I do remember, not liking debt. I remember my first experience where I just was like, I do not like to have to owe people anything. And I remember that my mom had learned about the credit card. And I remember that. And I remember that she got a credit card and she was able to buy a bunch of Christmas gifts for us. We always had a bunch of Christmas gifts growing up and stuff. And, but I do remember like, she was like, oh man, I spent all that money and put it on the credit card. Now I owe. And I was like, why'd you do that? Like, you know, at like 8 or 9 saying, why'd you do that? Like, oh man, that's too much. Although I was enjoying my toys.
Right.
But I do remember those kind of things. And then I do think, you know, sometimes, you know how you have families where everybody grew up and they became doctors, or everybody became lawyers, everybody became engineers. So my family, my dad is a tax person, so he actually has a tax practice. So when I was in high school, I was so proud that he, you know, was still working for the state and then got a tax practice. So that entrepreneurship, I was like, yeah, I like that, you know. Meanwhile, my mom would get these pink slips, and I was just like, oh no, I'm not gonna be. I can't imagine a company just saying I'm gonna lay you off whenever. And so, you know, I saw all that happening and I was just like, okay, entrepreneurship. And then my dad's in taxes and I'm going to do engineering. But my sisters, both of them, you know, one of them became like a financial relationship person at a bank. And my other sister, she's in finance, majored in finance. So I think we all just somehow, it might not have been personal finance, but we were all somehow leaning towards finance. And I don't understand why that is, like why our family was doing that. But in terms of personal finance, it was still something I still had to learn. I still had to, you know, learn more about. And so it wasn't necessarily that my parents just sat me down on every aspect of personal finance, but there was some things like saving and, you know, we were getting money and how are you gonna, you know, spend it. I knew how to spend it, but I didn't really fully understand how to save it, you know, and that type of thing. So now, you know, that's the aspect, you know, really showing people how to save, how to, you know, how to spend, how to enjoy it, how to protect yourself. But yeah, it wasn't like I said, it wasn't like we were just sat down and said, this is what this is and this is what that is, you know?
Yeah. No, it's really interesting because it seems like you have seeds planted of like what, how can I say this? Like what that American dream was, like through your mom, and just seeing like hard work, but still having to see like this debt side. And then you're seeing your dad where he's like finding his own path, and this is no disrespect by any means, but you're seeing like, okay, this is a traditional path and this is this like I'm going to find my own lane path, and those seeds were planted. So it's ironic that you did a little bit of both.
Oh yeah. I mean, I the corporate, because my parents, you know, were really big on, you know, get a good job, you know, get good grades, get a good job. But in my head, I was just like, you know, but I think I'm gonna go down that path of, you know, because my dad was doing real estate, he was doing his state job, and then he had his tax thing going. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna do this. And I do remember even my sister, I think she was saying, I want to do real estate. My dad was like, no. And he just knew how hard it was. He knew how hard entrepreneurship was. So he was just like, kind of like, you know, get that pension. But well, the pensions were going away by our time, you know, but both of my parents were able to get pensions and stuff. That was going away. And but I just had that drive. And when I did change careers, I remember reaching out to my dad about trying to, you know, get into financial planning, and it was just all kind of like real estate where it's just commission. And he said, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And some of it was still good advice, because I do believe that when you branch out and launch out as a entrepreneur, you do want to make sure you have enough funds to cover you until your business is covering you. So the job is like your it's like the investment into your business. And so I held on for as long as I could, and then I was just like, I gotta do it. And I remember, you know, just like, this time I'm not gonna ask my dad or get his advice. I'm just gonna do it. And I'm gonna tell them I've changed careers. I'm now, straight commission. I got to figure out, I don't have no idea what I'm going to make from month to month. And it was tough, but I'm still here. So
Yeah.
yeah. But I had all of the advice, all of the experiences from, just like seeing what it's like to be at a company and they lay you off, or they attempt to lay you off. My mom was able to work it through and figure out how to change departments and things so that she still kept the job. She never got laid off. She was there 42 years. And then my dad, he stayed working for the state. And then while he was working for the state, until retirement, he was building up his tax business and his real estate business. So by the time, he retired, he had those two things going, because, they retired in their 50s, which you still got to have income coming in if you retire in your 50s, because Social Security doesn't kick in until your 60s. So there's that gap. So you still have to have, something happening. And so, so I just observed them. And so it wasn't so much them teaching me, but they taught me by allowing me to see their life unfold.
That's awesome. So like, as you are building your practice and really trying to help people on this like financial wellness journey, how do you help, or what is needed to get started? Like, because money is a very touchy subject. Nobody willingly wants to say, hey, look, I got this much debt, this is what's going on, and I need help. Like, it takes this almost trust to even get a person there. So how do you establish that to get people on board with financial wellness?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's, I love to teach. So, I think working with a financial planner, especially if you've not done that. Our community, we never really work with financial planners. Historically, we might have had, the insurance man come to the house. My granddad had an insurance man come to the house, and that was kind of like your trusted financial advisor. But then sometimes they did things wrong. And so the Black community, typically doesn't have a full trust from that standpoint. And then there's just not a lot of us. There's not a lot of financial planners. So my biggest thing is I'm here to educate. I want to be able to help you and answer those questions. So the things that I experienced when I was 25 and I was just like, hey, I want to retire by the time I'm 30, help me. He didn't help me with anything, like he didn't even help me say, well, we can't retire by 30, but what I can help you do is start maxing out, on these different things. The 401k or those types of things, but just, or now that I know better, I could help somebody if they came to me and said they want to retire by 30. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. So I'm just really big into educating and understanding where people are. I'm big into understanding your story. That's why my company's called Your Story Financial, because I believe everybody has a story they want to create. And I like to, get into that. What is your story? And then really try to get that, we pull the numbers, we do all that, we get all the documents, but now I understand your why, what is your motivation? And if you don't know, then that's where we're going to have that discussion. And so it's interesting because some of the folks that I've worked with, they'll say, are we in therapy? And I'm not a therapist. I'm not a financial therapist, but, money is a really, the Bible says where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be. So it's really hard to, disconnect the two, our heart and our money and our treasure. It's just, you kind of still have to combine them. And so that's what I try to do, is just really get to know the people that I work with. And so it's really important for, people to find somebody that they trust, somebody they can share, because, and somebody they can relate to. It's nothing like telling a story like, yeah, I'm going to be paying for my mom's cell phone bill because that's what we do. You know, there's this black tax. And so sometimes you're, you know, paying
Ooh,
for things
child.
for your family. And if you have an advisor that doesn't understand that, you guys are going to continue to clash, you know? So you got to have that communication, you know, and have somebody that understands that, okay, I'm still going to budget. I got to budget this out because I know they're going to ask me, or I'm going to have a little bit of money set aside for when my family asks me for stuff. Can you help me figure that part out? You know, because I know they're going to ask me, or I know I'm probably not going to say no. Maybe I should say no. Maybe I should blink, you know, but that's where the financial advisor can come into play, because now you have a game plan and now you have a little bit more backing to say, yeah, my advisor's not going to let me do that. I'm sorry, you know, and all that. So there's just, you know, life is life in terms of how we deal with our family, how we deal with our money, how we deal with people. But yeah, but those are some of the big things that kind of come up, is that relationship, that education, that trust, and getting to know your advisor.
So as you hinted on the god awful black tax, there are some people who do not know that because they are not the black taxi in their family. So could you explain what the black tax is?
Yes. So I hope I do this definition justice, but my understanding of it, as I see it, is, you know, you're the one that, you know, got out there, got good grades, you got to college, you might have got a scholarship, you've been doing well, you graduate with a wonderful job. And now family is coming to you like, you must be really rich. You must be doing really well. And I need money. I need, you know, so-and-so, you know, my car broke down, or they call you for the money. You are that central point because you are the one that looks like the pillar of success. And so you now are trying to figure out, okay, how do I pay my bills and do all this? But oh my gosh, you might be on edge because you know you might get a phone call, you know? And so and I know people who have, you know, mothers, I know people who have cousins that do this to them. But you are the person that they go to for money. And depending on where you are in your journey, you may or may not be able to tell them no, or put any boundaries in place for that.
So, I want to kind of stick here for a minute.
Yes.
So for people who are in this space where you're blessed to like kind of be that catalyst or trailblazer for your family, but it has this weightiness of like, okay, I made it, now I'm almost entitled to help y'all make it. How have you navigated that in respecting your own mental health?
Yeah, so you talking about me personally, or as a financial planner and helping people, or
as a little bit of both, because okay. I want to see what's the financial planner, and then what have you done in your own, like for your own mental health?
Yeah, so personally, I will say, because I have had people in my family who have kind of, you know, gotten to that place. They're the folks, I've observed them being the folks that people call on. I kind of feel like I've been able to, you know, kind of hide under the radar, so I don't get those calls. And so I'm actually thankful for that. I mean, when there's something that, you know, happens and, you know, we got to chip in, I will, but I'm not the one. And then maybe because I'm kind of like, in terms of even the first cousins, you know, even though I'm the oldest of my siblings, I'm not the oldest of all the first cousins. So I'm not the first person that people think of to call. So even though, you know, I'm in my 40s, I'm still not really looked at upon as the, you know, I'm still looked at, you know, the young one, right? So, but then I look at, you know, my aunts and uncles and my, you know, my parents and just how they navigate it. And, you know, sometimes it can be contentious, you know, and so, you know, it can be tough. It can be really tough because if you have somebody renting your place. So personally, I have those boundaries up, and I think because it's been easier for me to hide under the radar. But one of the rules that I learned, just observing how my parents and how my, aunts and uncles interacted with family who might, put that pressure on them, is one of the things I said, well, if I ever buy a property, I'm not renting it to family.
Yeah.
They're going to have to go somewhere else. I mean, obviously you're not going to leave your family homeless, but for whatever reason, it seems like majority of the people will say, if you rent to your brother, your sister, your cousin, whoever, somehow they'd feel like they don't need to pay the rent. And it's just Jesus. The weirdest thing. It's like, how does that happen? But you'll pay the rent to someone else. So I just kind of learned that rule by observation. Okay. Mm-hmm. I see that. Okay. I will not be doing that. I won't be renting out to my, to family. It's just that familiarity, like, oh, you can take care of me. You can do this. So how do you do that? You do have to set those boundaries. I mean, I do feel like I said, I just kind of been able to hide under the radar. So I haven't had to deal with it personally. Yeah. But I have watched people, and so, setting those boundaries, or even just, for instance, I've had clients who, we look at the cell phone bill, like, oh, we have multiple cell phone bills on this, on this budget. And I don't do forensic accounting, and I'm not like going through line by line. If we see like, oh, there's multiple cell phone bills, who's that for? Oh, that's for my mother. Okay, why is it a $200 cell phone bill? Okay, does she need to have every bell and whistle? No, because she's not even using it, right? So all she needs is the cell phone, is for you guys to be able to reach out to her, for her to reach out to you, so that if something happens, right? Okay, yeah. Well, let's cut that down. Let's cut down that cell phone bill, because it's just not even necessary at this time to have all that. So there's things, it's like, okay, we can still help, but we're going to have to help you in the way that we can help you, And so that, because I know people, they don't want to say no, but sometimes you have to create your own barriers and limitations, because I'm on a budget over here. So I can't be doing all this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, in my experience, don't do it. Maybe I'm the person that's just like recovering from being the black taxi. Like, don't do that shit. Like, don't. Because it's this weird space, at least for me, where I just started to feel like something that was at one point beautiful and I felt happy to be able to be that person. I started to regret it, because I could see it was times where I may have really needed that same help.
Yes.
And that feeling where it's like, damn, I can help all y'all, but one of y'all niggas can't give me 20 for gas. Like, you just feel this like, yeah, girl, yes. Like, when I got fired from my job, I didn't have a job for 8 months. Like, cleared out 401k, all that kind of stuff. And like, I found myself being hurt because I could recount, not on some like check mark, but it's just like, damn, I would have thought the moments where I really needed help, I would have that same willingness or that same like promptness that I had for y'all in y'all situation.
Right. And you wish that they would have been able to reciprocate. You would.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But everybody's goes. Everybody.
And I think that's the part about the black tax that's never spoke on, because we're not invincible. We're not subject to layoffs, being fired, or life just lifing. Like, we're not immune to that. And it's like, when you are that go-to person in your family, you start to like feel that like, damn, is there not one person, if I was in the same boat, that would do the same?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a horrible feeling to feel
Oh,
like
girl,
you're left
yeah.
out to dry. Yeah. And that's
Girl, yeah.
where, yeah. And that's where those kind of things come up. You know, when I work with clients and we try to put together a game plan, like, okay, well, it sounds like you're going to be left on your own. So what do we need to do? You know, and also your values, because
Yeah.
who wants to really have to rely on somebody else? Not too many people, you know, not too many people
True.
feel that way. So, you know, how do we make it so that, you know, next time we make the best situation for ourselves should the worst happen? And
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest things that, you know, financial planning does for people. We don't try to expect the worst, but should the worst happen, how's everything going to turn out for us? And it puts you more in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's some good starting actions to get prepared to either work with a financial planner or just get on that path of saying, hey, I want to change my financial wellness?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really important to be very aware of where you're at. You know, if you don't know where you're at, you really can't really figure out where you're going. And I think a good place to start is looking at your cash flow. People hate the word budgeting, and people aren't really budgeting. And so I don't always, you know, push budgeting, but I do push knowing where your money is, you know, how much is coming in, how much is going out, how much is going towards those commitments that you have, like your rent, your mortgage, your utilities. And then in that, making a commitment to pay yourself, you know, so making sure that you're making that a bill, just like you have a cable bill, just like you have a phone bill. How much are you really going to pay yourself? And then from there, you start to figure out what you can do for dining out and for the fun stuff that you want to do, and just really making it more user friendly. So understanding your cash flow is super important. And then also what people tend to forget a lot is the net worth. I think that net worth is so important to understand because it really tells you really how wealthy you are. And so, you know, it's going to be a lot to get into right now, but I got a book coming out and I also have a course and things like that. But really your net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. So, you know, take the time to list out all your assets, all the things that if you were to sell it today, how much is it worth something? And then your liabilities. So do you have debt? Do you owe anything, you know, do you have a house that you owe money on? Do you have student loans? Do you have credit card debt? All of those, list them out and then take the assets minus the liabilities. And that'll tell you what your net worth is. And really start to work on either side. You know, if you see that you have a lot of liabilities, then start to reduce those liabilities, you know, and by reducing your liabilities, you will increase your net worth, especially if it's in the hole. You know, if it's a negative net worth, then you really do need to focus on that. So those are, I would say, the two main things that I would recommend doing. And then really getting in touch with your values, you know, your values, what you believe in, your why. And that can help motivate you to stay on track especially when it gets difficult. And it gets tempting, you know, like, oh, COVID, we're probably about to be able to break free here in maybe 9 months or so. Who knows? I don't know. But, you know, don't just frivolously spend all your money, really have a game plan for it. You know, yes, you can take a trip. Yes, you can do all these things, but just really have a game plan for why you're doing it. And always connect back to that.
Yeah. So for people like me, maybe, who have felt the weightiness of, like, let's say student loans when it comes to my net worth, how do you overcome that feeling where it's like, all right, I went to school, I did the thing, but now I'm paying for it. So how do you overcome that feeling?
So I think with with really anything where you're kind of in the dumps a little bit, or you just feel like, man, was this even worth it? I think having that, a couple things. I think it's really important. Like for me, I'm very big into what am I telling myself when I'm in that feeling. Yeah. So, what am I really telling myself? Am I telling myself I'm a failure? Am I telling myself this is never going to change? Whatever it is that you're telling yourself and it's making you, feel horrible, write down something that's completely opposite, that is positive about yourself, and begin to speak that out every day. Put it up on your, on your mirror. I am wealthy. I am, my money, like one of the things when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, they said, it's not that I can't afford it. It's just that, I can't afford it right now. It's not that, so one of the things, when I first started getting into all of this, when I was even at my church, they were saying, it's not that I can't afford something, it's my money is circulating. And even though it might sound a little strange, but it is, your money is circulating. It just may not have circulated back to you yet, but it will be circulating back to me. And really putting that out there, like, this is where I am today, but I'm not always going to be here. And then surrounding yourself around people who are positive about it too, like-minded people, having that community. And I mentioned I'm writing a book, and that is part of it. It's just really helping people to have like that super community, super network. If you don't have people that are in your life right now, this book is going to talk about personal finance. It's going to talk about, inspiring stories of those who have overcome this racial wealth gap that we're experiencing, and that impacts us. And sometimes it feels it's out of our control, but we can start to take back the reins and begin to, be around people who are doing it, be around positive people, surrounding yourself around positive music. Like I try to listen to positive music that's going to uplift me, because when I'm sitting there in my thoughts, what is actually happening? What am I really thinking? And so I have to take an assessment of what is all happening there, and then start to see how I can do the opposite of that. If it is negative, if it is something that's making me feel bad. It won't always be this way. Like our ancestors have said, trouble don't last always, and it don't, right?
Yes, Lord.
Yes. So it won't always be this way. It's just where we're at right now, but it'll change. It will not always be that way.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. I appreciate that, because it is that mentality that really changes everything, even when you don't have that money yet. Like it got to start with your thoughts for those actions that even come to fruition. So I love that you hinted on that, and just that restructuring of how you say things, like my money is circulating. So that is really powerful, because I want to say, was it Dave Chappelle? He was talking about like growing up, how his parents were like, no, we're not poor. Poor is a state of mind. We broke. Like it's different.
Yes.
So it's like just really having that mentality of like, it's coming. There's hope there, instead of just like, it ain't gonna happen. Like it really starts there.
Yeah, because if you don't have hope, you just completely cut everything off after that,
Yeah.
And, and I'm Christian, so obviously I'm like, faith without works is dead. You can't have faith, but if you're not doing anything, you're not changing your habits, your behaviors, then things aren't going to happen. But, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And that's one thing that I'm all about. And, and faith is the substance of things hoped for. So you have to have hope. Hope is that driving force, that currency that keeps things going. I mean, we wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for our ancestors having hope. The fact that they could get through the Middle Passage, and then somehow we are here today. We are here today. So there's a lot still for us to do, and they went through it and they prayed for us, and we are their we are their dreams, right, come true. And so we still have to fight for even the next generations after us, because each generation will get better and better is my thought.
Yeah. No, that's the truth. I feel like when we really like hone in on the strength of our ancestors, like we really can make things happen.
Yes.
Because it's like the story that I've kind of been telling more is like I learned that my ancestors literally stole the plantation owner's car.
Wow.
Drove that, like pushed it off of the plantation because you couldn't start the car without them hearing it. So they literally pushed it off and then got the hell out of that situation. So when I learned that story, I'm like, what the hell you mean I can't do?
Right? That's why you're here today, because they did.
You get what I'm saying? Right. So who am I to not like try something?
Yes.
So yeah. Like
you being innovative. They were innovative. They never I mean, obviously some of them might have lost hope, but for the most part, they didn't lose hope. That's why we're here today.
Literally
we're here today.
And that's what it is. It's like really seeing that as what it is. Seeing like, okay, this is what my family did for me, and really paying that homage to them by doing your best.
Yes.
And that don't mean you do everything perfect.
Exactly. We're not trying to do perfection.
Progressive, like
progress.
Progressive.
Yes, I love it.
No, but I really appreciate you and just really coming on here and talking through your journey and making it one, entertaining and relatable. Just to think where you were. I'm just stuck at like you are a person who at third grade literally could not read, write. You were, because of this being passed through to a person that really has like owned her power and owned her space on this planet and really trying to change people's life. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Grace of God.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
Yes.
I really appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Diamond. I appreciate you as well. This has just been an amazing conversation. I didn't know where everything was going to head, and I rarely tell the story very few people know about my third grade life. So you pulled it out. I love it.
No problem. Thank you so much. This has been another episode of Knowledge and Pettiness, where we are full of knowledge, yet equally petty. Thanks for listening.